As the seasons change and our routines return, I bet you've got some people wandering into your kitchen every evening asking, Mama, what's for dinner? Well, if your answer usually begins with a pound of ground beef, then I've got 5 delicious recipes to make that decision a breeze. From comforting classics to flavorful skillet meals, each recipe is quick and easy, budget-friendly, and perfect for busy weeknights. So grab that ground beef and let's get supper on the table, friends. Look in your pantry and fridge right now, and honey, if you have these few little items right here and a pound of ground beef, you can make this dinner tonight. This is my favorite kind of dinner because everything is made in one skillet. We're going to put it under the broiler, so I'm using an oven-safe skillet. We start with 1 pound of ground beef. Just going to cook this up till it's pretty well done and drain any excess grease out of here. This is a beef taco skillet. I don't remember the last time I made this. So very good. I'm going to put a little bit of onion into my ground beef. I'm just going to use about half of a sweet Vidalia onion. Gonna, get it cooked up in here till it's nice and soft. And while I'm dicing, I'm gonna go ahead and cut up a couple of green onions that I like to serve over the top of this. And I'm gonna cut some flour tortillas into strips. I'm using 4 fajita size tortillas. I'm just cutting them into strips and then cutting them in half. As our ground beef and our onions are finishing off here, let's go ahead and add our seasonings in. I'm going to use an entire teaspoon of garlic powder, finishing off that jar, an entire teaspoon of onion powder, an entire teaspoon of smoked paprika, a half a teaspoon of cumin, and we're going to use a big old tablespoonful of chili powder. Let's go ahead and get our meat and our onions all coated with all those seasonings. This is the most flavorful dish, and I don't even remember the last time I've made it. This meal and that Santa Fe chicken skillet meal, those are 2 of my favorites. Now that we have our seasonings in, I'm going to add in 1 can of black beans. I have rinsed and drained them. Sounds like I may need to cut my heat down a little bit. We're going to add in about 2 cups of salsa. Use whatever kind you like. I'm using this mild salsa that I get from Aldi. I love this. Looks like I've just eaten enough out of it that we can finish it off here tonight. Now let's just get everything all mixed together and let it come up to a nice little simmer. Now come our flour tortillas. As this is coming up to a simmer, all you do is throw them in here and then you just kind of stir them all together because you want to make sure that they get down in this mixture and get covered. And the very first time I made this recipe, I just could not wrap my head around these like uncooked flour tortillas going in here. I just could not figure out how that was going to taste good. And you definitely don't have to put these in here if you're not into that. You can serve it on the side. But I took a chance and I stirred them down in here just like the recipe said. And guys, I loved it. That was one of my favorite things about this. I just can't really explain it, but they get like soft and they absorb a lot of the liquid in here. I just love it. And really, it's no different than when we do like the layered Tex-Mex lasagnas where we layer the flour tortillas. Here, you're just cutting them up into smaller pieces. And I do mine in a couple little batches just to make sure that I can get it all stirred in. Once this has come to a good little simmer, it's nice and heated all the way through, your flour tortillas are coated and getting soft. I'm going to take about a cup of a Mexican style cheese blend, put it all over the top of this. Then I'm going to stick it under the broiler in my oven just long enough to melt that cheese, get it nice and gooey. And friends, we're done. We're going to top it and serve it with green onions, sour cream, whatever else you might like, avocados. You could definitely throw some corn in here if you want to. So many different things that you could add into this or have just like it is. Friends, one skillet, 30 minutes, all the good stuff, dinner's done. I've missed this dish so much. I have to say, if there's one drawback to finding new recipes all the time, I don't make my old favorites near enough. This is delicious. Perfect for a busy weeknight or just whenever you feel the craving. Today we're making a ground beef dish I saw Cowboy Kent Rollins make a good while back. Can't get it off my mind. It's a Big Mac skillet. We're going to start this recipe by making our secret sauce. It's all very simple, pantry staple ingredients that you probably have on hand. It starts with 1 cup of mayonnaise, 4 tablespoons of dill pickle relish, and just for your information, all these 4 tablespoon measurements, that's also a 1/4 cup. The recipe called for 2 tablespoons of honey mustard. I only had this Dijon. It also said that you could use a spicy mustard that Kent Rollins sells. I'm going to put in almost an entire diced sweet Vidalia onion, chopped up really little, 4 tablespoons of ketchup, 2 teaspoons of white vinegar, 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, and I'm going to throw in a little bit of black pepper. Mix all of this up to combine it, then we're just going to set it over to the side and get started on our ground beef. I'm browning up 2 pounds of hamburger meat. That is a lot for me. You don't usually see me use this much meat in a recipe. And Kent Rollins actually uses 3 pounds of hamburger meat in this recipe. That's just too much for us. So I knocked it down to 2 pounds and I'm just going to cook it up. I'm going to season it up with a little salt, pepper, and garlic. I like to use this blend from Kinder's or my Auntie Nono's if I have it on hand. We're going to assemble our Big Mac skillet in my 12-inch Lodge cast iron skillet. Cowboy Kent made his outside with hot coals in a big old Dutch oven, but we're going to do ours inside. We're going to layer half of our meat mixture in the bottom of this skillet. Then we're going to put about half of that secret special sauce we made on here, kind of smooth it out over the top. Then we're going to come across that with 2 cups of cheese. We're going to use 1 cup of cheddar and 1 cup of mozzarella. Then we're just going to repeat that, layering on the other half of our meat, the second half of our special sauce, and them 2 cups of cheese again. Now, to make it a Big Mac skillet for our bun, we're going to use some good old grand size canned biscuits. Just going to take each one of them and kind of flatten them down a little bit in my hand, then going to place them right on the top. And it's going to come out sort of looking like a Big Mac. And we're going to bake this in a 350-degree oven, just waiting for our biscuits to get pretty and brown and cooked all the way through. Probably need to lift up one of your biscuits and make sure it's not doughy on the bottom. Then you'll know it's done. Now that it's all browned up and pretty, we are going to brush on some melted butter and sprinkle some sesame seeds on here. Make it look just like a Big Mac. I wanted to make this when all the kids would be here for family dinner, and I'm so glad that I did. It was plenty enough to feed us all, and every single person here absolutely loved it. It was a huge hit. That sauce is so amazing. Of course, this ain't the kind of Big Mac you're going to eat with your hands. You got to use a fork. And sorry I didn't get down in there and get you a nice tight close-up like I usually do. I just took a bite of this and I immediately went down and ate dinner with the rest of the family. I can't say enough good things about how delicious this recipe was, except that you're just going to have to try it for yourself. Now, let's talk about this side dish that I fried up. These are the infamous tater cakes, and this batch was some of the best I've ever made, so let me give you a quick little rundown on how to make these. While we're waiting, I'm going to mix and fry up some tater cakes. Haven't made these in so long, my mouth is watering, friends. I'm using 2 cups of leftover mashed potatoes. So you want your mashed potatoes good and cold and firm. Into that, I'm going to crack in 1 egg. I'm going to put in about 1/3 of a cup of cheddar cheese. You can put in any cheese you like or none at all if you're some kind of monster. I'm just kidding. I know some of you can't eat cheese, and I'm sorry about that. I also like to throw some onion in mine. I'm just using a sweet Vidalia onion. You can do green onions. I love to do that. I think they show up really pretty whenever you're frying them up. I like to season it up with a little bit of salt, pepper, and garlic powder. And I've got about 1/3 cup of just regular old self-rising flour here. I'll start with about half of that. Start mixing all this together. You want your potato cakes to not be runny. They need to kind of be stiff and kind of sticking together a little bit. I may end up using all of this. I might even end up using a little bit more. Potato cakes is one of those mixtures that you just kind of have to get a feel for it through trial and error. And I keep my flour and my cornmeal in the refrigerator. Do you guys do that? I just feel like it keeps, less likelihood of critters getting in it. I just feel like it keeps it fresher longer. My mom's just always kept hers in the fridge, and that's what I do with mine too. And potato cakes are a great way to use up leftovers. Sometimes I have thrown black beans and corn in these. I've used leftover bacon from breakfast. I've put shredded chicken in them before. You can do them a million different ways. Now, to fry potato cakes, I'm using a cast iron skillet again. You can use anything you have, but I love them in cast iron. I'm going to heat up enough oil here to cover the bottom of the pan, and I'm just going to put them in here by the spoonfuls. I just really don't mess with them much. Try to flatten them out just, a little bit if I can. Let them fry a couple minutes until they're nice and good and brown on that one side, and they will just loosen right up. Flip them over, then I'll kind of smush them down. And I may flip them back over to the other side to get it good and done too. Just put them over on a paper towel to drain off the excess grease, and just keep frying till your heart is content. And the skillet that I'm frying these tater cakes in, it's my new favorite, Lodge skillet. It's from the Black Lock collection. They're triple seasoned, which is wonderful. It really has a good coating on it. And because of the way that they make these, like the composition of the stuff that goes into it, this Black Lock line from Lodge, the pieces are either 20 or I believe it's 30% lighter than the regular cast iron pieces. These are a game changer for me because I like a big skillet, especially a cast iron skillet, but they are hard to lift and I love these. I don't know what you're waiting on, friends. This is your sign. Make yourself a big batch of tater cakes. You have that wonderful onion and cheese flavor mixed into those light, fluffy mashed potatoes on the inside, crunchy, golden brown goodness on the outside. You're gonna love them. Now that we've got some great ground beef dinner ideas, let's talk about a way to make meal prep even easier no matter what's on the menu. With HelloFresh, you can say goodbye to endless recipe searching and wasting money on ingredients that you might only use one time. HelloFresh delivers everything you need to make delicious meals right to your door. Pre-portioned, fresh, and ready to cook. No more guesswork, just easy step-by-step recipe cards that make cooking dinner a breeze. I love the seasonal recipes, especially their fall menu. This week I made a creamy butternut squash and kale pasta dish that was absolutely delicious. And even though I've been cooking for my family for over 30 years, I'm still learning new cooking techniques and flavor combinations from HelloFresh recipes. A lot of them I share with you. And me and Patrick are having a lot of fun taking turns choosing something new and out of our comfort zone with each one of our orders. And if you love trying new flavors, HelloFresh offers an ever-changing menu with 50 recipes to choose from every week. Just pick your meals, set your delivery date, and you're all set. It's that simple. As the days get busier, now's the perfect time to streamline that dinner routine. Skip the grocery store lines, save money, and cut down on food waste with HelloFresh's pre-measured ingredients. And you can easily customize your meals with protein or veggie swaps to meet your family's preferences. And don't forget to check out HelloFresh Market for quick and easy breakfast, lunch, and snack add-ons that can jazz up your weekly deliveries. Right now, HelloFresh has a delicious offer. For free breakfast for life, go to HelloFresh.com and use code FREEMAMA. One free breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com with code FREEMAMA. All the details are down below in the description box, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. And thank you HelloFresh for being a longtime supporter of the channel. Tonight we're making a recipe I've had my eye on for a long time. This is Rotel Pasta. Very simple ingredients. 1 pound of ground beef and a skillet is all that you need. Well, I will need a pot to boil my noodles in. I about forgot about that. I especially thought of Maddie when I saw this recipe because she loves a cheesy pasta dish. And I've got my ground beef already in the skillet over here starting to cook up, and I'm using 1 pound of ground beef. That's all you need for this recipe. Just going to start it cooking through, and then of course if you have any excess grease, you just kind of want to drain that off of there. I'm also going to get a large pot of water boiling up to cook my pasta. And I'm using an entire 16-ounce box of penne pasta. I really like this whole grain penne that I get at Kroger. And once it's done, I'm just going to set it off of this stove eye. And before I drain my noodles, I'm going to go ahead and reserve about 1/2 cup of water just in case I need it to thin out my sauce later. Now that my ground beef is kind of cooked up, I'm going to go ahead and add in some onion. This was a huge onion I had, and I just probably using about 1/4 of it. Whoops. I'm just going to let these onions get softened up and my meat finish cooking all the way through. I'm going to throw in a couple little teaspoons full of some minced garlic. Let's stir that around and let it get sauteed up for just a minute till it gets nice and fragrant. Now we're going to stir in 1 cup of beef broth, 1/2 cup of heavy cream, 1 teaspoon of chili powder, 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. I'm going to give it a little bit of salt and pepper just to my taste. I'm going to throw in a nice generous tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. And I'm going to stir in 4 ounces of softened cream cheese, and I've got mine cut up into little cubes. And we're going to stir it all down in here and get all of that cream cheese melted down and everything incorporated. Now that I've got all the liquids in here, I turned my stove eye back up to about medium. I want to bring it back up to a simmer so that it'll, smooth out and break down my cream cheese. And I want it to simmer and thicken up just a little bit. You know who I forgot? In Rotel Pasta? I forgot my Rotel. I'm not draining this. This is just the Aldi brand of diced tomatoes and green chilies. We're going to put this whole can in here. It's kind of hard to make Rotel pasta without the Rotel. Now that my sauce is beginning to thicken up, I went ahead and cut the stove eye back down to low, and I'm going to shred in about a cup of shredded cheese. Then we're just going to stir it in till everything is nice and smooth. If you're the kind of person that likes to meal prep on the weekends, this would be a very easy recipe to do that with. You could make this meat and cheese mixture up, put it in the refrigerator, then whatever night you're ready to make this, all you have to do is boil your pasta up, heat the meat and cheese sauce up in the skillet, and then stir it all together. Now that my meat Rotel cheese sauce is nice and thick, I'm going to start stirring in my pasta. Once you get everything stirred in, I just like to shred a little bit more cheese right over the top. Classic, delicious flavors that the whole family will love. Simple, inexpensive pantry staple ingredients that your pocketbook's going to love. This is perfect for a big, hearty fall family dinner night. And in a recipe like this, I love using the penne pasta or any pasta that has the hole in it, because these noodles hold on to that sauce all inside of them. At our house, we love Sloppy Joes and we love meatloaf. So when I saw this recipe for Sloppy Joe meatloaf, I knew we had to try it. I'm using a pound of very lean 93.7 ground beef, and I'm just going to mix it up right here in the dish that I'm going to bake it in. I did spray it with a little bit of nonstick spray. I'm going to season this with just a little bit of salt and pepper. I'm gonna put in a little bit of diced onion. You don't have to do this, but I really like onion in my meatloaf. You could use the dried minced onions if you'd like. Gonna use a half a cup of just regular breadcrumbs here. This differs in my normal meatloaf is that I usually use oatmeal for this part. Of course, you gotta have that egg. And for the Sloppy Joe portion, we're just going to use a can of regular manwich sauce. I'm going to pour in a little bit more than half of this can and mix it into our meatloaf. And the rest of it we'll save for a topping. Let me get all suited up here. And we're just going to mix this together. Of course, what everybody always says about meatloaf is you don't want to over mix it because it'll make it tough. And you may have noticed I'm not forming mine into a loaf or using a loaf pan. I guess that's another unpopular opinion of mine. I like to spread my meatloaf out in a casserole dish like this. I never did like to cut into a big thick piece of meatloaf and it look red on the inside. And when you do it in a little casserole shape like this, you really ensure that it's done all the way through and it doesn't take near as long to cook either. We're going to put our meatloaf in a 350-degree oven for about 25 minutes. Then we're going to pull that meatloaf out of the oven, top it with the rest of our manwich sauce, get it nice and spread out all over the top. I'm just going to put mine in about 5 or 10 more minutes just to get this top all gooey and delicious. I'm gonna get some potatoes started for mashed potatoes because we can't have a meatloaf without mashed potatoes and some green beans on the side. And if you've been here, you'll notice I did something different. I actually peeled my potatoes. Most of the time I don't peel them when I'm making mashed potatoes, but I hope to have a little bit of leftovers and I'm gonna make fried potato cakes. And when I make fried potato cakes, I just prefer that we don't have the peel in there. Haven't made them and shared them in a long time, so can't wait to show you that. Right after I pour the water off my cooked potatoes, I like to go ahead and give them an initial little mashing with my potato masher. Then I'll go ahead and pour in just a little bit of milk, heavy cream, evaporated milk, whatever you want to use here. The creamier the better. I season it with salt and pepper, throw in a little bit of butter. Then I always like to add in something to give it just a little bit of added flavor, whether it be a big spoonful of mayonnaise, a couple of teaspoons of some cream cheese, or sour cream like I'm using today. That just really kind of amps up the flavor of your mashed potatoes. And if you've been here before, you know I am no stranger to the instant mashed potatoes. I use them all the time, especially on busy weeknights, and I make them basically the same way. I do split the water amount and use half the amount of water and finish the other half with milk, and I doctor them up the very same way. Something else I get asked about a lot are these green beans, and I just use canned green beans. I pour them in with the water that's in the can. Then I start with a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. If I have bacon grease, I'll always throw that in. If I don't, I'll just use a little bit of oil and a little bit of butter. I also like to throw in just a little bit of bacon. Today I'm just using some cooked bacon pieces. If I have leftover from breakfast, that is perfect to throw in. Then what makes these a little bit different is I add Worcestershire sauce, just probably about a teaspoonful for 1 can of beans, and I put in a pretty heaping spoonful of brown sugar. We were at a cookout next door with our friends, and Caitlin's mom, Anissa, had a huge pan of these green beans, and Patrick went wild for them. So, of course, I had to find out how she made them, and this is Anissa's recipe for these canned, doctored up green beans, and we love it. And I cook my green beans good and hard and let most of the liquid cook out of these.
So this is different from the regular meatloaf.
Yes, this is a Sloppy Joe meatloaf. I see you're eating potatoes first.
I know you say there ain't no difference between.
What do you mean no difference in what?
Them's real potatoes, they ain't instant.
Them's are real potatoes.
Those are real potatoes.
They are. I'll let it just come out. I hope it ain't too hot.
That's good for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Very good. Well, I like it. That's good. I like your original better.
I love Mary's meatloaf. You can't beat it.
But it is good.
Something different.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't tasted it yet. I like it.
It is good, huh?
It's a little bit too tangy. We like ours a little bit more brown sugary.
Very good, Mom.
It is good. I like it. But feed me another bite. Just feed me one more bite so I can taste it. You know what I think? I think I went too heavy with the sauce on the top. I love the flavor of it in the meat. I think I went a little bit too heavy on the top because it's almost too much sandwichy. Because I did go pretty heavy because I know you like a saucy meatloaf. But how about those green beans?
Well, it's kind of like it. They're good. It's kind of like it.
Okay.
When you've had the best, it's hard to substitute.
Are you saying I make the best?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it wasn't mine. My friend Mary gave it to me. Okay, that settles it. I'm just going to have to put Mary's meatloaf in this video too. Even though I've shown it before, I think we definitely need to put it in here for any of our new friends who haven't seen it. Don't you agree?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to make Mary's meatloaf. This is one of the most beloved recipes in my home and here on my channel. Starting with 1 pound of ground beef. I'm using a little handful of frozen onions I had left in the freezer. If you like green peppers, be sure to put those in. I've got a little 8-ounce can of tomato sauce, and I'm going to use, maybe 3/4 of that can. And I think Lowry's seasoning salt is the perfect seasoning for this meatloaf. To help hold all this together, I'm using 1 cup of quick cooking oats and 1 egg. There is something about using the oatmeal. I like it so much better than crackers, bread, breadcrumbs, anything else that I've ever tried. I don't know what it does, but it keeps it so moist, and it just has some kind of magic that it does. It has the best flavor. I'm not knocking anybody's meatloaf, but I've not had one yet that can shake a stick at Mary's. It's my favorite. I'm just making a small 1 pound meatloaf for us, and I prefer to make my meatloaf in a casserole dish. I like it a little bit thinner, and it doesn't take quite as long to cook. And if you mix it up in your baking dish, you don't have any extra dishes. Going to cook this at about 425 degrees for about 30 minutes. And if you think Mary's meatloaf cannot get any better, just wait. We're going to take that remaining tomato sauce and make a savory, yummy topping, throwing in a little bit of brown sugar, a squirt of mustard, and just a little drizzle of apple cider vinegar. Patrick Effler likes his sweet, so I throw in a little extra brown sugar. Gonna mix that up. We are gonna take that beautiful sauce and pour it all over the top of this meatloaf. In addition to the oatmeal, this sauce just makes this meatloaf out of this world. This is just a small one, of course, I've made today, but I'll have you a link to all the measurements for a full recipe for it down in the description box. I'm gonna put that back in for another 10 or 15 minutes, and it will get nice and sticky and gooey on the top. 30 years of making this meatloaf, and I am not tired of it yet. And I love to get me a big corner piece. This is delicious. You can't go wrong with this one. Let me know when you make it what you think about it. Click on this playlist next for more quick and easy casseroles made with ground beef, chicken, and more. They're perfect for busy weeknights. And as always, friends, thank you so much for spending some of your time with me. Until I see you again, I send you love from my kitchen.